All right, let's get started here. All right, welcome everyone. How is everyone this morning? Good, good. All right, we have a lot to cover today, so let's get going. Okay, welcome everyone who's online, and welcome everyone who's here. Okay, Saruda, we started the recording already, right? Okay, good. All right, so today we're going to go over the numbers and the math. Okay, the numbers and the math, and I also want to go over due diligence. Okay, the due diligence. So there's quite a bit to cover today. I'm going to go pretty fast. We're actually on our last couple of classes here. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, is today class what? 7, right? Yeah. So if for some reason if I still need to cover things, I might actually go a 9th class. Okay, if you guys don't mind. I just want to make sure you guys get everything before your final. Okay. All right. All right. So let's get going here. We're gonna go over commercial math. Okay. Now, the reason why the commercial math is so important, because it's a big part of the due diligence that a client needs to do in order to see if a deal is viable or not. So due diligence and understanding the math, the two are very closely tied together. Okay, the two are very closely tied together. Okay, so even though I'm going to go through the math part first, I'm going to bounce back and forth from the math part and the due diligence part of things. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to start the slides here. Knowing the numbers, valuation. Now, there is a lot of math in commercial, but if I go through all the math with you, that by itself can be a whole 8-week class. Does it make sense? Because like for example, you take a math class, the kids who take a math class are in math class every single day for a whole semester, the whole year for one topic, right? There's no way I could teach you all the math just in 1 2-hour period and squeeze in due diligence at the same time. You guys got that? So I'm going to get you the general math, but it's not all the commercial math, okay? All right, but I'm going to give you the general math, okay? So, and the main things, the things that we need right away, okay? All right, so valuation, there's 3 approaches, and I'm sure you've seen this before because we learned this in Real Estate 101, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, the market approach, okay, in commercial real estate is only one way we evaluate property. And I think that's one of the biggest skill sets to have when you're in commercial real estate, is to help a client understand the value of properties, okay? And so this approach is a pretty typical approach that we use for residential, but when I talk to you about sales comparison approach in math, okay, you're gonna have to look at different factors, all right? And this is what I mean. This is what I mean. You gotta learn how to look at different factors in the sales comparison approach. Now, in a home, when you're looking at a home to evaluate your listing or your sale versus another property, you look at a similar area, you look at a similar number of bedrooms, a similar number of bathrooms, you know, if it has a pool or it doesn't have a pool, and then you look at the sales prices, and then you compare it to yours, and that's how you get a comp, right? Yes? Yeah. Well, in commercial, it doesn't really work like that. In commercial, when you're looking at comps, the things we're looking at is what a shopping center is selling for per square feet. So we're not looking at finding a shopping center that's identical, because a shopping center they're not going to be an identical shopping center right next door in the same area, in the same street, with the same stores in them, right? You see? Because when I talked to you before, when you look at a shopping center, when you do your comparisons, you're going to ask yourself, what is this shopping center renting for? What kind of tenants does this shopping center has compared to the tenants that the shopping center my clients want to buy has. Okay? Because remember when we talked, if your tenant is a top level tenant, which is called a credit tenant, okay, then the value of that tenant has a big impact on the value of the property itself. Okay? So not necessarily, like for example, it's funny because if you could have, let's say for example, you could have two buildings. One building has a credit tenant in it, but the credit tenant is paying less rent than the building next door that has a tenant in it that's paying more rent. So if you look at two buildings, okay, if you look at two buildings, commercial buildings, all right, and these two commercial buildings that you're looking at, one of the factors when you look at it, you say, well, the building that's renting for more has more income, therefore that building is more valuable. You see? Does that make sense? But what you don't understand is that there could be two buildings for rent, but because the tenant in one building, all right, is a credit tenant, even though the other tenant is paying more, when you look at all the numbers, it could be that the credit tenant, that building's worth more. The blind eye of an agent that doesn't understand that can make huge mistakes. There's been lots of occasions when buyers, okay, will overpay for a property because they're buying a property based on the rents and not based on the financial strengths of the tenants. And there's been a lot of steals and deals made in the commercial real estate industry where someone, a great investor, got a home run of a deal based on the fact that they found a property that was undervalued, okay, because of the strength of the tenant. Does it make sense? So in knowing the numbers, you have to understand that when you're looking at the sales comparison approach, when you compare, there's a lot more things we're comparing than the size of the building or the number of office suites or something like that. You're comparing a lot of different things. The quality of the tenant, you're comparing the price per square feet, the rent in the area they're being charged, so you're comparing a lot of things, okay? But that's a comparison approach. The cost approach in commercial real estate takes into account what it costs to build something. What it costs to build something. Okay? What it would cost to replace something. Okay? Okay? What it costs to build and replace something. Okay? And then finally, the income approach is the approach we most commonly see in commercial real estate. Is we're basing the value of the building based on a cap rate and the income that the building gets in. Okay? And we're putting there a reasonable cap rate for the value, towards the value of the building. Okay? All right, so let's move in here. Okay? So I'm gonna flip through this. Okay? I'm gonna flip through this a little bit, and then we're gonna go right into the income approach. So the first bit of math we're gonna go into is the cap rate, or net operating income. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go through the math. Okay. Net operating income is a very important calculation to work on. Okay, net operating income. Okay, let's say for example, let's assume that the property, you have a piece of paper, then let's write this in here. Let's assume that the size of the property is 25,000 square feet, and you have an 85% occupancy. Okay, you know, with a rent of $20 per year, operating expenses at $7.50 per year. Okay.
What are the numbers in the letter?
No. You'll see. No. That's just the 5 factors that we're looking for. An operating reserve of $1.50 per square foot per year. An operating reserve is just contingencies, things that just, pop up, okay? Things that are unforeseen, okay? Break-ins, whatever, okay? All right. So this is, let's calculate it here. So you have 25,000 square feet, and write this in because we're going to start doing some math, okay? We have 25,000 square feet, okay, at $20 per year, so that's $500,000 in income, okay? Now, one of the things that we're going to learn when we're calculating net operating income is a vacancy factor, okay? Is a vacancy factor, okay? In this case, the reason why we took out the 15% is because we had an occupancy rate of 85%. If your occupancy rate was at 95%, then we just take out a 5% vacancy, okay? But in this case, one of the things that we always calculate in there is a vacancy factor, okay? Now the reason for a vacancy factor is that, properties like big office buildings or something, even retail spaces, there's always a movement of people. And during that time there's a movement of people going in and going out, there's free rent periods. And then there's times where there's no tenant, okay? So that's a vacancy period, okay? All right? So that's the average. If you say, hey Robert, well my property right now it's just that time where half of my property is not being leased out. It doesn't mean that the property is worth only half. Does that make sense? You would do the math based on if the whole property was leased out, and then you look for the area. What's the vacancy for the area? Normally we could pull up that on CoStar. This area has an average 15% vacancy. All right? Like for example, I'll give you an example. When you're in a not so good area, you could be at 15%, 20% vacancy. These are shopping centers that always have available space, right? But when you're in an area like Roseville or you're in an area at Folsom, okay, they're almost never vacancy. So their vacancy rate's maybe only 5%. Now, is there ever a time when there's no vacancy? No, there's never a time there's no vacancy. Because people are normally on 5-year leases, right? And when their 5-year leases come up, they either move, they renew, and a lot of times when you're renewing, you're asking for maybe a couple months free rent period anyways, so that you can do some improvements, right? So, or some refreshments, or whatever. You're getting some kind of incentive for the extra 5 years. So because of that, so in this case, so let's learn how to do the math, okay? So when you're calculating net operating income, you're taking the size of the building, okay? You're putting there, because some buildings, you're trying to purchase brand new, no tenants whatsoever. Does that make sense? So if that's the case, you have to create a proposed net operating income. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So what we did is we took the $500,000. So that's the total income for the building, total income. You minus out 15% for vacancy for this area. Some areas you'll minus out only 5% for vacancy. Okay? This gives you the number called effective gross income, an effective gross income. Then you take out operating expenses, okay? Now, operating expenses could be management, okay? It could be staff, whatever it is, okay? It could be taxes, it could be insurance, okay? An operating reserve, which is things like, cracked tile, just fixing like emergency stuff. And so you get a net operating income. Okay, you get a net operating income. Okay, so the first calculation. Okay, and so these are what to look for. Okay, all right. So verify actual leasable square feet. So when you're out there working to calculate a net operating income for a property, the first thing you're doing is you're verifying actual leasable square feet. Okay? The market that you're in will determine the vacancy rate for the area. Okay? Number 3, the rents can vary between units. Okay? But you just come out with an average for the area unless you're breaking everything down suite by suite. Number 4, okay, operating expenses. Because this is important because you need to know what categories are in each line, okay, as you're doing the math. Look at all the expenses paid. Utilities, staff, taxes, insurance, janitorial, admin, okay? But remember not to include debt service, okay? Mortgage payments, depreciation, income taxes, the cost of owning is not part of the net operating income. Okay, the cost of owning is not part of net operating income. Okay? Tell me, why is the mortgage payment not part of net operating income? Why?
Because the mortgage for different people can be different because if you pay more cash down or you get a better interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, what if one person owes... Yeah, I mean, like, what if one person owes 80% LTV and one person owns it cash? Right? If you take out the debt, then you can't get an accurate net operating income because some people owe a lot of money, some people don't owe anything. When you buy the building, you're not taking over what he owes. Does that make sense? When you buy the building, you have a new owe. So you might just pay for it cash. So the debt service is not part of the calculation for net operating income. And a lot of people who are new, they don't know that. They always take out debt service, and then their numbers are all crazy. Does that make sense? I mean, there have been times I've seen where an agent or a seller doesn't know how to calculate their own net operating income. And because they don't know how to calculate their own net operating income, they way undersell their building. That make sense? And then there's buyers that work with agents that don't know how to calculate the net operating income. So you think that happens? Buyers work with an agent and the agent tells the buyer, hey, this property is a steal. This is their income, and at what they're selling it for, you're getting it for a 9% cap. They go, wow, that's a great deal. So they buy it. And later on they find out, oh man, we forgot some major things. Right? And they way overpay. So knowing the math is very important, okay? So in this case, net operating income. And then finally, lenders normally require reserves, improvements, replacements, broker fees. There's a reserve for just things that a business owner would just run into over the course of the year, right? You know, cracks in the concrete, you know, huh? Yeah, whatever, you know, HVAC, that's a big cost when owning a property, HVAC, you know, I mean, landscaping, you know, replacing something, the broker's fees. And when I say broker's fees, it's when a building, a unit goes vacant, you have to pay the broker fees to release it. Does that make sense? So it's not like, so when you say, well, why are the reserves so much? It's because when you own a building, there's always just things that come up. Does that make sense? Just things that come up, okay? Once you calculate that, okay, then you get a net operating income, a real, like a, you know, a pretty valuable, a pretty sensible net operating income, okay? Now, The lenders, if you know how to calculate how lenders look at it, then that's how you should calculate it for one of your clients, okay? If a lender looks at it this way, that's a safe way to look at it, okay? All right. So, more net operating income. Okay. Okay, so let's go.
Some building I see it is leased for like 40 years.
What's that?
Like some buildings they lease for 40 years.
Is that a government tenant?
No, it is like Taco Bell or that thing.
No, they have a ground lease, but they don't have like necessarily intercar. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's some that's in long-term leases. Yeah. Okay. All right, net operating income. So let's do the math again. Okay. This is another area where we look at the math again. Example. Okay. Hey. Wait, hold on a second. Okay. So without looking at the answer, because Linda, when she read my thing, normally the question comes up first, not the answer. You know? So let's go ahead, even though in this case the question came up, the answers came up. Don't look at the answers, okay? On a piece of paper, let's give yourself this example, all right? So you just get used to it, all right? Just get used to it, all right? So later change the slide so the question comes up, okay? Instead of the answer comes up, then the question, all right? Yeah, they reformatted my stuff, okay. So calculate me the net operating income for a 50,000 square foot building at a 90% occupancy is rented for $250 a square feet with a 50-cent operating expense and a 20-cent reserve. Let's do the math. Let's just do the math. And calculate net operating income for me. Take a second and calculate it for me. So you can do that. All right. So calculate that for me. So you get used to it. Even though the answer is sitting right smack there in front of your eyes. You know, let's just ignore the answer for a second there. Okay? Ignore the answer. Okay, ignore the answer and write the question. Right? So here, just write the question. Just write these 5 factors in, okay? All right, so the 5 factors is 50,000 square feet. Okay, so write this down. 50,000 square feet at a 90% vacancy. Because you're only going to learn if you start doing it, okay? 50,000 square feet, 90% vacancy.
Is it occupancy or vacancy?
90% occupancy, 10% vacancy. The rent is $2.50 per month. All right? Okay? You have a 50-cent operating expense and a 20-cent reserve per square feet. All right? Calculate net operating income for me. Calculate. So you have a 50-cent operating expense and a 20-cent reserve expense.
There's also per month.
Per month. This is all per month. Sometimes you have to be able to distinguish per month versus per year. The last question was based on per year. This one is I gave you numbers based on per month. It's like a little twist because you might run into that in your exam.
Well, I have you something.
And then give me the annual income. And just
Let me do this. Don't spill that on here. I don't want that over
Where do you
here
put all the income for what?
for this meeting.
Okay. All right. So do the math for me. Do the math for me. Because the first thing I want to show you everyone how to do is calculate net operating income. Because when you're able to calculate the net operating income, the NOI, then from that number, when you have an accurate NOI, then you could get, but then you can start really playing with the value of a property. But you need to be able to get to that point. You have net operating income.
So you're saying this net operating income is monthly that we're figuring out?
No. We want to calculate the annual net operating income.
So, but the numbers that
I get numbers I gave you is monthly, so you're gonna have to
Okay.
do the math and either turn it into an annual number, right? You have to do the math and turn it into an annual number. All right, and then once I see everyone facing up, I know to go ahead and let's go over the answers, okay? And let's see if you got the right net operating income. But regardless, when you're in the the commercial real estate industry, being able to calculate an accurate net operating income is very important. Okay? Any lender that you work with is going to require to get all the financials in order for them to determine the net operating income of a property. Like when we get into lending, which is next week is the lending week, okay? When we get into lending, which is next week, we're going to go over numbers like debt service coverage ratios, okay? You know, personal financial statements, okay? Profit and loss and balance sheets. So you sort of get an idea of the things the banks will look for when your clients are trying to buy a property, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and move forward here. Let me give everyone the answer. All right, let me give everyone the answer. Why is it not working? Okay. All right, so on a 50,000 square feet, okay, at a 90% occupancy, the rent is $30 per year. How did I get $30 per year from? Because I just took the monthly rent, $2.50 per foot, and I timed it by 12 to get a $30 per year. I got my 50 cents per foot to $6 a year, my 20 cents a foot to $2.40 per year. Let's do the math. So 50,000 square feet at $30 per year is $1.5 million a year, right? Okay, I took out 10% for vacancy, it's $150,000. So I have an effective income of $1.35 million. And I minus two numbers. I minus 50,000 square feet times $6 a year, which is 50,000 times $6 is $300,000, right? Is my first deduction, is my operating expenses, okay? So one of the important things, so remember these 5 things. Remember these 5 things when calculating net operating income. Thing number 1 is you need always to know how many square feet are we working with here. Rentable. Okay? Why do I say the word rentable square feet?
Because
There are spaces in certain types of buildings, especially office buildings, that are not rentable. You guys understand that? When you go into a big office building, the lobby that's shared by everyone is not rentable. Okay? When you go into a big office building, the hallways that you walk down are not rentable. The staircase, the elevator, the storage rooms, the community conference room if they have one. Does it make sense? None of that area is rentable. You guys understand that? Okay? All right? So that's why they have like in office, they have an impact, like a leasable square footage, okay, and then they have an impact fee, and some people call it different things, and it's like, okay, the common area maintenance fee is an extra 15% because you have to pay this extra 15% or whatever it is because of all the common area that you share. Does it make sense? Okay, because of all the common area you share, camps. So in this case, this property is 50,000 leasable or rentable. You took out an area, so so the first number you always need is how many rentable square feet. The second number you always need is vacancy. The vacancy, like I mentioned to you, is determined by the area. If you're in a high vacancy area with high turnover, that means people are coming in, people are coming out a lot, then you have to take out more because of vacancy. All right? But if you're in an area that's very solid with long-term tenants, and the area is solid, there's not a lot of vacancy in the area, then the bank is okay with 5%. Okay? And normally we could pull those things up on our CoStar and pull up vacancy rates for area. Okay? All right? You guys got that? Okay. Next, we take out operating reserves. Okay? Again, an area, we'll ask, like the banks will normally ask us, we want to have at least a 20 cent per square feet reserve, or in this case, $2.50 square feet reserve. Okay? Whatever reserve. So normally taking around, like in this case, this came out to be like a 5, 6, 7% reserve on the total cost, which is fine, which is normal. Okay? So then you got an net operating income of $930,000. Okay? So it went from $1.5 million to $930,000. Okay? Without giving you the formula for it, for some of you, I already sort of taught you the formula in class number 1. How much is this building worth at an 8 cap? How much is this building worth at an 8 cap? Can someone tell me how much is the building worth at an 8 cap?
11.
Okay. So when the question is, well, how do you calculate that? Okay. So all we did, we took the net operating income. Because remember, the net operating income is one of the most important numbers that you need to calculate. Okay. That's the base number that you're going to need to know for the bank. That's a base number that the seller needs to know when selling and the buyer needs to know when buying. When you determine an accurate net operating income, then everything is based off that number. Make sense? Using the income approach, of course. All right? Using the income approach. Right? So I took 930 and I just divided by 0.08. $11,625,000. That's it. I divided by 8%. That's a cap rate. Okay? So, in talking about cap rates, like right now, if we look at multifamily and I see all the comps for multifamily, I see multifamily comping at 5.5 to around 7% cap rates. The 7s are the ones that are sort of the bad areas, and there's a lot of vacancy and the areas that's sort of like a lower income area, the area neighborhoods are a little bit rougher. So I see them offering on CoStar right now 7 caps. Okay? I see like student areas where primarily a lot of the people living in student housing is renting in that area, like the ones in Davis. I wouldn't be surprised if those sold for 5 caps. I wouldn't be surprised if those were 5 caps.
Even in downtown it's 4.5.
Oh yeah? Yeah, see? So now you're starting to sort of understand our language a little bit, okay? So if this apartment complex, if this property right here was in an area that for a 5 cap, give me the value of this property on a 5. Someone give me the part, and you need to be able to get out the numbers and just do it. 18 million, 18.6, 18.6. 50,000 square foot building. See, so I want you to start getting your mind into the commercial game. Because I want you to be that good. I want you to be able to, every time you ever see a commercial building, I want you to evaluate it. I want you to put a value on it. Okay? I want you to be able to say, to walk into a building and say, and say something like this. How many square feet is your building? Oh, it's a 40,000 square foot building. So do the math right now. How many square feet is your building? It's a 40,000 square foot building, and what's your rents? My rents are $3. Okay, and do you know what your operating expenses are? Okay, you know, and you know, and then the answer to them is, I'm triple net. I'm triple net. Okay, I'm triple net. All right, and my tenant right now is pretty good credit tenants. It's pretty good credit tenants. What's my building worth? What do you think? Could someone do the math for me? So I have a 40,000 square foot retail space, triple net. My tenants are all pretty much credit tenants. You know, they're franchised credit tenants. What's my shopping center worth?
1.4.
So you give me 1.4 million? I'll buy that one. So hey, no, do the math right now. Get a piece of paper out. You're having a conversation with someone, because it's good to start learning the math. This guy who owns a building, owns a shopping center. He has around 40,000 square feet retail center. You know, it's pretty much all leased out, and he's getting around $3 a foot, triple net. Okay, so what would you say to him? What do you think my building's worth? So what's your answer back there? Give me a definite answer. What would you say to him?
I would say to him that it's probably what per square. Normally we looking for square footage also. That's 40,000 times how many square footage the building is, how many share and according to the net operating, which he has given us the expenses.
Okay, so he's talking to you guys right now. Say, hey, I have this shopping center. It's around 40,000 square feet. I'm getting $3 a foot, triple net, and most of my tenants are franchised tenants. You know, they're good tenants, and it's basically I'm all full. So in full sub.
8 million.
So you say 8 million. What do you say? 5-6 million. Someone give me an answer. Okay.
Mr. Robert, would you please give the 10 million, I think.
17 million. 17 million.
Did we say a cap rate already?
No, he's just asking me what he thinks the building's worth.
I took a cap rate of 5.
Like 5?
Just because it's
Okay.
vacancies,
17
all
million.
rented out.
Yeah, because you know the building right here, this building
Triple net.
is probably worth around 18 to 24 million dollars. So someone gave him 5, someone gave him 8.
I put 17
The
million.
number is 18 to 24 million dollars.
How did you get to the number?
So you tell me how to get to that number.
Well,
Huh? Yeah, in a minute here. But see, one of the things that's very important is I want everyone to get to sort of understand in your head, because what's going to happen is that you're going to have this conversation. Okay? And you're not going to have any paper or pen in your hand. And this guy, who's going to be a serious businessman, is going to ask you questions, and he's going to see if you flinch. You flinch, you lose the deal. You guys understand? You know what flinching is? Is that split second when someone who's an owner of a $24 million shopping center is going to ask you a question, and him giving you a chance or not giving you a chance is your 5-second reaction. If you flinch, you lose. You understand? Right? So I just threw something. I don't expect you all to know it, right? But I'm giving everyone an example that when you get out there, you got to get to the point where you understand the math, somewhat well enough to not have to flinch, okay? Let me just do the math for you real quick. All right, just real quick, from what I gave you, okay? Okay, all right. This is a 40,000 square foot, okay? At $3 a foot.
That's per month.
Well, not per year, you know? Okay? So you had $120,000 times 12,
Right, 144, that's where I was at.
okay? Times 12. So what's that number?
144, yeah.
Okay? All right? What I did is one of the things that he said is that these are franchised credit tenants. Okay? So in my head and in the trainings, you know, I already sort of mentioned it in the past. If it's a credit tenant on retail, you can get a 5 cap on it. You know, if it's like a McDonald's, it's like even a 2.5, 3 or 4 cap on it. Okay? When you see the word franchise tenant, a franchise tenant is normally a credit tenant. A franchise is a McDonald's, a Habit, a Jamba Juice. You know, those are franchise tenants. Okay? All right. All right. So in my head, let's just give it a 6 in general. It could be less. It could be a 5. It's not going to be an 8, okay? You don't get franchise retail shopping centers for an 8 cap, okay? Or 7, okay? It's going to be in the 6 range, okay? So I took that and divided it by 0.06. So give me that number.
24 million.
How much?
24.
Even?
Yeah.
24 million, okay? I took out a 5% vacancy. So I times it by 0.95. What's that number?
22.8.
22.8. Now, why did I not take out operating expenses?
Because it's triple net.
Huh?
Because it's a net.
Because it's a net lease. A net lease, we don't take out operating expenses. Why? Because all those fees are passed on to the tenant.
Yes.
If something needs to be fixed, then basically triple net's recalculated. Right? You guys understand that?
What was that 0.95 number?
Is the vacancy. I just took out 5% for vacancy. Okay? So we're looking at a $22 million shopping center. If we flinch and we're in the 5 or 8 or $10 million range, we're off by too much. Does that make sense? Why did I say it's worth, you know, $18 to $24 million? Why did I do that? Why did I say that?
Because you don't know
You want to exceed expectations.
Yeah, I said, you know, 18 to 24 because I say if you want to just fire sale it, if your tenants freaking suck, if you are half empty, then you're probably 18, 19 million dollars based because of why? Give me an 8 cap on this prop shopping center now. So now, seeing the numbers I just gave you, give me this at an 8 cap. Well, then do the math though. Do the math. Give me exact numbers. Do the math like this. Give it to me an 8 cap.
18.
Okay? So, we're still based on the same income, 1.4 million, divided by 0.08. What's the number?
18 million.
18 million even. That's why I said 18 to 24 million. Because you see the difference? A 6 cap is worth 24 million. An 8 cap is worth 18 million. I'm pretty darn sure a 7 cap would be 21 million, it's right between, right?
I
Yes.
just have a question about vacancies, 0.95, well, this going with like 0.05?
Well, 9.5 occupancy rate is the same as a 0.05 vacancy.
Oh, so we're doing time more,
Well, you can do it the same thing. You could actually times by 0.5 and then minus the number, but I just got to it faster. I just times it by 0.95.
yeah, that's the occupancy 95, 0.95.
Yeah, I mean,
Vacancy
like skipped a step. You guys understand that?
Divided by 0.95.
No, you divide it by 0.95. You're actually adding. You're adding like 8%. No, you can't do that.
So you.
No, you can't divide it by 0.95. If I took, okay, let's say you took 24 million and divided by 0.95. What number do you get? Huh? You guys understand that?
No, I mean, I'm not getting,
Yeah.
why are we doing it on occupancy, not vacancies?
That's the same.
It's just a shorter route.
Because to get to the net operating income, I could either take that number minus 0.5%, and then I'd have to do another math because I'd take the number and then have to minus it to get the operating income. Instead, because I knew it was a 5% vacancy means 95% occupancy, I just multiply by 0.95. So it's me being, because I'm good at math, I just eliminated a whole, a line item. Does it make sense? That's all I did. Okay. That's all I did. All right. Yeah.
On the,
Yeah. If you divide it, you'd be messed up. Okay.
on the cap rate, I know you just, we talked about this in the previous class. But how come it's lower the number, higher the value of the building on the business?
Huh?
How come it's lower the,
Okay. So he has a question. I need everyone to be able to answer that question in your head. Okay. Not yet. Blurt it out. He asked me the question. Why is it the lower the cap rate, the higher the value of the building? Because when people purchase buildings, the cap rate is the amount of return they're looking for what they spend for the income. They're looking for a return, okay, on what they spend on the building. So if, like for example, if you buy a building for $100 million and you're looking for a 5% return, you're looking for $5 million a year in income, okay? All right? If you're looking for a 10%, if you're looking for a $10 million a year income, okay, then that building you would not buy unless that building is being sold to you for $50 million. Okay, does it make sense? You see? Because if you're looking for a $10 million a year income and you're looking for a 10% return, then if that building is only offering a 5 cap, then a $100 million building will only give you a $5 million return if you're looking for a 5 cap. If the investor is looking for a 10 cap, then that same exact building they would not buy for more than $50 million. Okay? So cap rates these days is based on market demand. Cap rates these days is based on market demand. Okay? Let me ask everyone something. Because now we're in an economy question, okay? Let me ask everyone something. What is the cap rate, even though it's not called cap rates, it's called a return. What is the return on a government bond or a CD right now? 4? What bank is that? The people that have money sitting in a CD or money market account at Wells Fargo right now, what are they giving in a money market savings account? What are you getting from your bank money market savings account right now? Around 1%? 2%? If you commit to leaving the money there for 5-10 years, what are you getting? 2.5%? 3%? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what the banks are giving. Okay? What is a real estate investment giving these days?
12%.
12? No.
10.
No.
16 to 20.
Okay. No, I mean, because we need to know. I want you guys to know.
Around 7%.
Okay, so look, just look at the math, okay? Just look at the math, okay? If you buy a $300,000 home, okay, what are you renting that home for?
Probably 2,500.
more like
No.
18 to 19?
No, that's the real numbers here.
18.
Okay, let's go 1,800. Not 25. $2,500 is like a $500,000 home. Okay. All right. Now 1,800. So do the math for me. Get me the net operating income for this property. Come on. Let's do it. Give me the net operating income. Since we're on that game, let's do a residential real estate portfolio. Since we're in that game, okay? Okay. So we have an income. Okay. Now, residential vacancy rates.
5. 5.
No. No. Even the banks right now. Here, let me ask someone who's ever done a loan for a client or gotten a loan. How much of the rent does the banks allow you to calculate into your client's debt ratios?
75%.
Huh?
75%.
Around 75%. You guys understand what I just said? Normally, the banks, because see, look, in this business, you gotta understand the math. How important is this? Yes or no?
Right.
How important is this? Okay? So you gotta now learn how to think numbers. The best commercial brokers and people know the numbers like the back of their head. I know them. Sometimes I can calculate in my head. I don't even have to use a calculator. I sort of know. Okay? So, in working with banks, when we work with a client, the banks normally only allow us to use 75% of the rent as income. So when we're doing a loan for someone who has rental property, and if the rent is $2,000 a month, but they have a mortgage payment of $1,500 a month on that same property, the mortgage payment and the rent cancel itself out in debt ratios, right? You guys understand that? They don't let us use the full $2,000 rent. They make us take out 25% for vacancy and for cost. For all that, okay? So in this case, we have number one is we have the rent, right? Number one is the rent.
Right.
Number two, take out the vacancy. So take 75% of this number. What's that number?
16,200.
So give me the real number.
16,200.
Okay, time 0.75, 16,200. Give me the exact number so don't confuse people, okay? All right? Okay, so 16,200. Since we took off a whopping 25%, that's basically including everything. That's including the operating costs and stuff, okay? We took out 25%, okay, for that. Because vacancy is technically not 25%. Vacancy is probably more like 10%, 15%, but we took out another 10% for like the expenses and utilities and all that stuff, okay? So take 16,200. What is the cap rate on this? What is the cap rate on that? Huh? What's the cap rate on that?
5.4.
The cap rate on this is 5.4%. That's the cap rate. We just reverse math the cap rate on a normal single family home. Easy. You take this income and you divide it by the $300,000. You take this income and you divide it by the investment. Right? You see? So a normal single family home with all of the expenses, with vacancy, with whatever you have to go through, is normally at a 5 cap. Single families at a 5 cap, but it comes with a lot of headaches. Because, it comes with bad tenants, it comes with things that a commercial won't come with. But it's at 5%, not 12, okay? It's residential real estate investors normally are at 5, 6 caps. Okay, you guys understand that? That's the real world. Stock, what's the cap rate for stock?
It fluctuates.
Stock is volatile.
China tear.
Stock can be, but over the course of 40, 50 years, it's in the 5s, okay? Mutuals are in the 5s and 6s, okay? Does it make sense? You guys understand that? So when people have choices, when they have choices, their choices to put money is in residential real estate, which are smaller line items. Okay? They can put it into multifamily. They can put it into retail. They can put it into office. They can put it into a hotel. They can put it into gas station. They can put it into penny stocks, right? They can even put it into their own business with a 95% fail rate, okay? You know, they can put it into the bank. The bank is the most secure, obviously, but it's at 1%, 2%, right? You guys understand that? So when you ask me, Robert, where do you come up with these cap rates? Now you know. Banks, 1-2%, okay? You know, homes, 5-6%. Commercial buildings, 5-7%, okay? Stock, 4-6%. Unless you're on a penny stock, unless you buy first issue Berkshire Hathaway stock many years ago for $1, and now it's worth $400,000 a share. You know, I mean, so it's a gamble. But then there's stocks that you put $1 million into that go broke. Buy MoviePass stock to see how much your stock is worth. You know what I'm saying? Okay? Yes.
So how come this method of calculation is different than, let's say if you're trying to sell a business, for example, a Burger King,
Yeah.
and they're asking for ×5.
Yeah.
Net profit.
Yeah, because that's different. Because, okay, he's asking the question, all right, is that why is this calculation different? Because you're owning real property. You're owning something that can appreciate and has value. When you own a business, you don't own nothing. You just own a plan. You just own goodwill. Goodwill, you can't see goodwill. You could lose goodwill at any time. There's no deed on goodwill. Does that make sense? It's not a cash. It's not. Okay. So like for example, I'll give you an example. Okay, what he's asking for about is called a multiply. You said the number 5, right?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 is a very good business.
Yeah, that's very good.
You know, insurance is 1.5.
No, usually it's 3, 3.5.
Really, insurance?
No, I'm talking about like.
Yeah, insurance is a 1.5 on average. Okay, so what it means is once you calculate the net income of a business, if a business makes $1 million a year, depending on the type of business, the business, if it's an insurance, like if you sell like like homeowners insurance, when people are always changing their insurance policies and this and that, if you make $1 million a year in insurance, your business may be only worth 1.5 million, 2 million. You will sell your book of business. Okay? If your business is a restaurant, then it could be a 3 multiplier or a 4 multiplier. That means if your restaurant brings in $1 million a year, you can probably sell that restaurant for like $4 million. Okay? If you own like a really steady type of business, like a really steady type of business, okay? Like even a real estate company, sometimes we sell for 7 to 8 times income. Does that make sense?
It also depends what kind of franchise it is.
And if it's a franchise or not. If it's a franchise, like you buy a McDonald's franchise, oh man, you look at 8-time multiply easy. Does that make sense? Those things don't lose money. It's like buying guaranteed income. Okay, but you buy something that's like in and out, guaranteed. Buy Costco. Of course, it's a publicly traded company, but it's guaranteed. Okay. But if you buy something that's not, buy a Sears. You know what I'm saying? Not even a 1. It might even be a. Does it make sense? Okay.
But Robert, if you get anything below appraisal value is good, you will calculate it below.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, because whoever appraised it with a low cap rate because they know how strong the income is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some appraisers might come in there and appraise it at a 5 cap. Yeah, okay? All right, so that's how this is calculated. Does that make sense? That's how this is calculated. All right? So you're learning the commercial math involved. So let's talk again. Okay? All right, let's talk again. So, a guy has an apartment complex. Okay, this guy has an apartment complex. He has 100 units. He has a 100-unit apartment complex. which with average rents of $1,500 a unit. Okay. Okay, he has a 100-unit apartment complex. He rents each one on average $1,500 per month. Okay, he has a 5% vacancy. All right, 5% vacancy. You know, with a 15% operating expense. With a 15% operating expense, and that's including his reserves. Okay, 15% operating expense, let's go 15% operating expense and a 5% reserve. Okay, with a 5% reserve. All right, 5% reserve. Okay. Okay, 100-unit apartment complex, $1,500. Okay, so do the math on this. 100-unit apartment complex, $1,500 average rent per month. Okay, he has a 5% vacancy. He has a 5% vacancy. Okay, and he has a 15% operating expense and a 5% reserve. What's the value? And this apartment complex is in Elk Grove. Apartment complex is in Elk Grove. What's my building worth? What am I looking at here?
Can we get the cap rate?
If you're gonna ask that owner the cap rate, then well, you should be telling me what the cap rate is. Okay.
All right, 5% cap.
Okay, so give me a number, and give me a range. Give me a range. Give me a range. Give me a range. Okay, so give everyone a chance to get some numbers here, because
27 to 30.
believe it or not, it's sort of funny because, see, when you're working with a home buyer, and the home buyer says, how much are homes in Elk Grove, or how much is a 4,000 square foot home in Elk Grove, a lot of times you can just say it, right? If you know the area, you just say, oh yeah, this home's around 400,000. You know, what's the cheapest homes in Sacramento? You're probably looking at Oak Park, 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes. You can probably get them for like $225. You know, what's a home in Granite Bay cost? I mean, don't they ask you that question? Oh well, I mean, a decent home in Granite Bay costs around $1 million. A real nice one costs around $2 or $3 million. You know, what's the cheapest ones in Granite Bay? Is it $100,000? No.
No.
The cheapest ones are at 4 or 5, 700,000. Yeah, 700,000, 800,000. So you know, I mean, you sort of know. So when you're talking to an owner, you know, a lot of times you bump into him, and these owners have less time than a normal home buyer. The owners of these apartment complexes, they have less time to BS with you. They'll ask you straight, what's my apartment complex worth? And you're gonna need to just run some math real quick. Oh, how many units do you have? What's your average rent? $1,500. Oh, okay. You know, I mean, are your operating costs pretty expensive? No, around 10-15%. If you own an apartment complex, you sort of know that number. Oh yeah, my operating expenses are currently at around 15%. Okay. And then you just throw in the reserve just for the hell of it, just because, you know, I mean, I know the bank's going to ask for a reserve. Okay. And because whoever's going to buy from you probably not going to buy all cash unless they're super rich. Okay. So now that we know those numbers, okay, let's break those numbers down. So let's take the first number. Let's take 100 units, okay, at $1,500. What's the income? $150,000 per. So what's annual? 1.8. Okay, 1.8. Okay. Let's take out 5%. What does that come out to?
Couldn't you just multiply, couldn't you just do it by 25%?
Yeah, you can do that. If you want a shortcut, you can take out the 5% for vacancy, 15% for operating expenses, 5% for contingencies. So what's 5 plus 15 plus 5 is 25, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually multiply that income, multiply that whole income by 0.75. which is what?
1.3 million.
1.3 at a 5 cap. What's it worth?
27 to 30 million.
27 million is what, 5?
Yeah.
What's at 7? What's at 7? What's the same property at 7? I know definitely not 8. Huh? 19 to 27? Okay, so at 6, you're sort of in between there, right? 25, no, 20, 22.5, right?
So higher the cap rate is better than.
No, higher the cap rate is the better for a buyer.
Yeah.
The lower the cap rate, better for the seller. Yeah.
Robert, I apologize for, I mean, I understand, but when you were trying to take, your occupancy and expenses, okay, are you, referring to the annual, income, or are we going back to monthly income?
Yeah. When you're calculating cap rates, you always do it annually. You always do it annually to determine the value of the home because what people are looking for is an annual return. A 5% annual return or on the whole value of the property. So a property, if your bank, you put $1 million in your bank, you're not expecting 3% every month. Oh, that'd be great.
Right.
You're expecting 3% for the entire year. Does that make sense? So
But
we're doing everything to annual. Everything is always converted to annual.
Gas station has better cap rate, 15 to 17%.
Because it's a business.
Business with the
Yeah,
gas station.
because it's a business. It's not just the land. You have to run the business. Right? Yeah.
So when you say, Roseville or Folsom, then you're gonna say conservatively at a 6, but you're not gonna go higher than 6 'cause it's a
Yeah,
nice
I
area.
mean, right now, a Roseville, an area, I mean, we sort of know the areas as realtors.
Right, right.
You know, a multifamily right now in a really good area is a 6 if you're lucky. It's actually hovering around 5.5. Okay? If you're looking at, you know, not so good areas, Oak Park, North Highlands, Del Paso, then you're looking at 7s. 7.5 even, you know,
So
8.
just in casual conversation, you calculate, you're gonna say 5.5 at, worst case scenario.
No, 5.5 is the good
I'm
case
saying
scenario.
in
Where's the
those-
6?
In those great areas.
In those great areas, I'm talking about 5.5, 6s. Yeah. Unless there's some kind of obsolescence.
Right.
Okay? And you guys know what an obsolescence is, right?
Airport.
Yeah.
Station.
Yeah. Unless there's an obsolescence.
Right.
You know? Okay? Alright? You know, unless, like, for example, you have an area and there's a whole, maybe their Air Force closes down or McClellan closes down. So all these employees are all of a sudden, you know, the 5, 6, 10,000 workers that were there are gone. Then there's a little bit of obsolescence there. You know what I'm saying? Let's say, you know, you happen to be next to Ford factory and Ford closes down and moves their operation to China and they lay off 10, 12,000 workers. Yeah, there's an obsolescence there. You know, so that might go at an 8 cap. You know what I'm saying? Okay? So things that you can't control. And an obsolescence could be a functional obsolescence. Like, you know, your average unit is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 400 square feet. And that's a problem. You know, that's not normal. Okay? Okay? Got it? All right? So that's, so now we're understanding. Okay, net operating income. All right, let's keep going here. So these are just more examples. I'm gonna, okay. Now, so here's some more math for you. Net operating income divided by the cap rate equals value. We just did that. If the net operating income is $500,000 with an 8% cap, 6.25. Okay, if it's the same property at a 10 cap is 5 million, the same property at 12 cap is 4 million. Okay, the difference being 4% on that is, you know, over $2 million different, just for 4%. Okay? So I mean, example. Let's go through the example because, you know, I mean, I'd rather go through it more than less, okay?
Right.
50,000 square foot property at $2 square feet a month. Okay? 15% vacancy. Okay? 50 cents a square feet operating expense, 15% reserve with an 8.5 cap. Do that math for me. I'm not gonna give you the answer. Give me the answer for that. So do that math for me.
What's the last numbers? 15% vacancy.
Okay, so here, let me read it because it's sort of small, okay?
Yeah.
50,000 square foot property that's being rented for $2 per month. Okay? You have a 15% vacancy, a 50 cent per square feet operating expense, a 15 cent per square feet operating reserve. You have a cap rate of 8.5% for that area. What is this property worth? Do the math. This is the type of math that if you're good at, it's not complicated math. This is not geometry. This is not trigonometry. This is not calculus.
It's not for scientists.
This is arithmetic. Adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying with percentages, okay? All right? So this is the type of math, believe it or not, we have to know like the back of our hand. We're figuring out what's the value of this property here. The better we are at this, you know,
The richer we'll get, right?
yeah, I guess, hope so. I hope so. Give me the answer here. Okay, so write down your answer when you're ready.
I'm just looking at
Okay, let's go. We can't wait any longer. Okay? All right, let's go. Okay, let's go over the answers here. All right, here's the answer, okay? It's sort of small, so I'll just read you what it is. The gross income is 1.2 million, right? So 50,000 times 2 is 100, times 12 is 1.2 million. And minus 50% for vacancy. Even though you could have done it by times it by 0.85, but I did this way here. Is less 180,000. So you have 1,020,000. You minus 300,000 for operating expenses, which is simply 50,000 square feet times 50 cents a foot times 12. What? Yeah, because 50 cents a square feet is per month operating expense. You see that? So you minus $300,000. You minus $90,000, and so you get the NOI, net operating income, $630,000. Okay? See that? Okay. See, here is what gets people. What gets people is that when people give you per square footage cost, they normally give you a monthly cost. Like when people give you rent, how much you charge in rent? I charge $1,500 a month. They don't say I charge $10,700 a year. Like when you talk to people, how much you pay in rent? $2,000 a month. People don't say I pay $24,000 a year in rent. People don't say that. So when people give you numbers, they normally give you numbers in months. But when you're trying to calculate the value of a property or net operating income, you're calculating for the year. Because it's the year and the cap rate. The year's cap rate is what we use to determine the value of the property. Like when you say, when you pay interest per annum, not per month, right? Like right now, your interest rate for your home is 4% fixed over 30 years, not over 360 months. How much do you pay? I pay 4% a year. I don't pay 0.75% a month. You guys understand that? Okay? So because of that, one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're calculating is they don't convert months to years correctly. You all have to be on the same timeline, okay? It has to convert months to years, okay? So I got the annual income, I got the annual vacancy, I created effective gross income, I minus the annual operating expenses of $300,000, annual operating reserve of $90,000 to get an annual net operating income of $630,000. Okay? Now I take that $630,000 divided by 0.085. 0.85 is 85% return. Okay? 0.085. You're talking about property is worth $7.411. $7,411,764.71. Does it make sense? Okay, so that's the answer. That's the answer. That's your answer. Okay, you guys got that? Okay. Higher the cap rate that you offer, the lower the sales price of the property. Why would you offer a higher cap rate? Okay? Properties that have a higher cap rate that's being offered are properties with a higher degree of risk. Okay? So example, you have too much vacancy. That's a higher degree of risk. You're not in as good an area, less popular market. It's older, so you know that there's going to be a lot more maintenance involved coming up. Older. AC units are all older, right? The wood is all older. A lot more dry rot, okay? A lot more appliance issues, a lot more leaks, right? It's a secondary location. For example, we're in Sacramento County, prime Sacramento County. is what? What's the prime area? Downtown, prime. Okay. Is Oak Park prime? That's secondary. Except there's some areas that are in Oak Park that's somewhat prime, which is right next to UC Davis Hospital, right?
Prime for investors.
Yeah. I mean, next to Sac State, there's some prime areas there for multifamily, right? But Elk Grove is considered prime. West Sacramento is starting to become more of a prime area. Okay, Natoma is considered pretty prime for our area. Outlying areas: Folsom, Granite Bay, Roseville, now Lincoln and Rockland, right? Okay, so, and then there's secondary areas you need to offer a higher cap. So like when we talk about cap rates, we say, hey, multifamily prime areas, 5 caps. I mean, didn't you say some apartment complexes in Sacramento are going for 4s?
No, downtown.
Downtown, right? 4s, right?
4.5.
4s, 4.5s caps. Man, pick the same exact property I just showed you. That was an 8.5 cap. If it's a 4.5 cap, it'd be double the price. Does that make sense? Right? You see? All right. So tenants aren't strong. Tenants have a big, and guys know this. When you're talking, you need to know this. They say, well, why what affects the value of the property? Okay, well, what affects the value of the property the most is the cap rates that we offer. Oh, what's a cap rate? It's the amount of money an investor would want to see as a return on what he spends. If an investor spends $1 million, they want to see at least 5% or 6%. 7% if they want a property that has some issues. I mean, because why would an investor not want to see 1%? Because if an investor want to see 1%, they just put it in the bank and get 2%. Right? If an investor really wanted 1%, then they just put it in the bank and get 2%, 3%. Why risk and go through the headache of owning a property for? You own a property, you own rentals because you want to see 5%, 6% returns. See, the one thing that people don't see that can bring your returns into the 10-20% return range is what? What's the one thing outside of the... Okay, let me ask you something. Why would an investor buy a multifamily building in downtown for a 4.5 cap when he could find a multifamily in a bad area for a 7 cap? Why would an investor rather pay get a 4.5 cap in a downtown, a new downtown apartment unit for, why?
The tenants have better jobs and better income, the full occupancy, I believe. And number 2, it's future value.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Is sometimes it's less risky, right?
Yeah.
So more people want to buy less risky, right? It's like a blue chip stock is less risky. But another thing is that what we're overlooking is the value of appreciation. Does that make sense? Sometimes, like Ethan Conrad. Sometimes Ethan Conrad don't mind buying something at a low cap if he sees that he could get better tenants. Does it make sense? Sometimes the better tenant themselves can take a property from a 7 cap down to a 5 cap. Okay? So give me the example. I'm going to go back to the math here. Okay? In this situation, this 50,000, this building, this 50,000 square foot building is renting at $2 a foot. But the cap rate's at 8.5% because the tenants aren't very good. What if this investor bought the building, for $7.4 million, but he leased it to the government.
Oh, wow.
And the government took all 50,000 square feet. Tell me what the building would be worth at a 5 cap. What's the same building? What is it worth at a 5 cap?
12,600,000.
Huh?
12 million.
And what did you do?
I just multiplied the income, divided by rental property.
Yeah, I mean, all you did was you took the same, what? You took what? NOI, net operating income. You divided by 0.05 instead of the 0.8085. And now it's worth 12.6 million. So all of a sudden, you have this investor that bought this office building at an 8.5 cap. He negotiated with the city to lease his building, and let's say they signed a 10-year lease. And now, because this income is so solid, he sold it to a conduit, a big-time investor, like one of those big hedge funds, because it's government. There are funds that buy government property throughout the country, and they're willing to pay 5 cap for it. Guess what? He just bought at 7.4, sold at 12.6. He made $5 million from it. You understand? So the value is understanding these types of numbers. All the time, great investors like Ethan Conrad, they look for diamonds in the rough. Does it make sense? They look for those. They look for properties that have bad tenants and lots of vacancy. Right? A lot of times they offer very good cap rates. They offer very good cap rates. So do the math for me at a 6 cap.
Well, yeah. Oh, sorry, they're both sold.
All right. 10-5.
10.5. So even if they were able not to get a government tenant, but just better tenants, they were able to get the property from being worth 7.5 to 10.5. They made $3 million in appreciation there. Does that make sense? Not even what you call it. So back to what we're talking about. You should memorize these factors. There's certain factors that you can't change, like less popular market. But you know what? Less popular market, you know what you do during on those things? You watch areas that are reinventing themselves. Like if you hear hey, you know what? West Sacramento is coming back. 20 years ago when I grew up in West Sacramento, I went to River City High School, and Southport was nothing. The only thing we had was a pheasant club, this restaurant, nothing else. Now there are all types of shopping centers over there, right? New school, all types of stuff going on in Southport. So less popular markets become popular markets. What do you do during that time? When you see areas becoming popular, you start buying in those areas. Because the things that's holding those areas back aren't going to hold them back in 5 years, right? You keep it and you let it become. Like Lincoln, 10 years ago was nothing. And now it's something, right? Does it make sense? Those areas are just popping up, right? Older buildings. Well, Ethan Conrad buys older buildings, and what he does, he freshens them up. There's certain things that it makes sense just to freshen them up. Paint don't cost that much. New roof doesn't cost that much. New pavement don't cost that much. And plus, new tenants come in, you just put it into your Triple net. Okay? Make sense? Tenants aren't strong. How do you fix that? Get better tenants. Okay? Too many competitors, too many like properties, that's a problem. You know, that's a problem. Okay? That only fixes itself if the economy gets better or more people move in. Those are problems. Too much vacancy, same difference. Okay? That's a problem. You guys got that? Okay? All right. Gross rent multiplier. So, gentleman over there asked me about gross rent multiplier. Okay. So you asked about that earlier, gross rent multiplier. It's in here. Okay? Okay. Gross rent multiplier is the sales price divided by the actual gross rent. Okay? So, example. Okay? Example. If the property is $1 million, okay, $1 million value, and every year it gets $100,000 in income. Every year it gets $100,000 in income. You're looking at a 10-time gross rent multiplier. Okay, a gross rent multiplier. Okay? This is probably one of the most simple and fast ways to calculate what a building is worth or what something is worth. Okay? It's probably one of the fastest ways, but there's something disadvantage. So I don't normally like using a gross rent multiplier because it doesn't take into account vacancy, expenses, tax issues, financing issues, you know, different losses and reserves, you know, like losses as in, so it doesn't take into those things into account, okay? It's just a real fast way of seeing how much something is worth, okay? So I'll give you an example. Oh, well, I didn't give an example. It's just a fast way, but this is what it is, okay? So if the rent is $100,000 a year and you put in a 10 multiplier, then it's worth $1 million. But I just don't like doing it that way. Make sense? It doesn't consider a lot of factors. You know, it doesn't consider a lot of factors. But there's such a math that they use. Okay?
Does anybody really use that in any evaluation?
Yeah, just real quickly. It's just a fast and simple way to do things, and I don't normally like to do it that way. Okay? Yeah. You only do it that way if you just can't get anything from someone. You know? Okay? All right. Cash flow. Okay. The next math piece right here is how to determine cash flow. Okay? All right? Now, there's something called cash flow before depreciation, amortization, and taxes. Okay? So, one of the things that a lot of people, when doing the math on a project, they don't consider is that there's advantages. There's advantages and, of course, certain losses that come from projects, okay? And this is called cash flow. That means that some people, they want to purchase a property and they want to see how much cash they get, okay? So this cash flow takes into account, all right, your financing, okay? So I'll give you an example, and I'll go through this real fast. If you bought a property at $3 million, but you are getting an 80% loan to value with a 6% interest over 25 years, okay? The operating expenses, and the net operating income is $350,000, then what we've calculated here is how much actual cash do you get. This is actually a good calculation to be able to do if the clients want cash flow, okay? Cash flow, because see, most clients, when they buy, let's say we're talking about buying a $10 million building, they don't normally buy the building all cash. Does it make sense? Normally, they'll put 10, 20, 30, 40% down. When they're putting that kind of money down, okay, and they're borrowing the rest, a lot of times the money that they receive in income is more than what they pay out for expenses. That's the calculation of cash flow. You understand that? Okay, for example, in the residential industry, like when you buy a property for $300,000 and you rent it out for the $1,800 that we talked about, right? Most of us, when we buy a rental, you just don't pay $300,000 cash for a home. You put 20% down. You'll buy the $300,000 home for $300,000, but you'll put 20%, $60,000 down, and you're borrowing $240,000. So then you're calculating, okay, my payments, I borrowed $240,000, my payments $1,200. I rent it out for $1,800. My utilities is $150, so it's $1,350. So I have a $450 cash flow. Does it make sense? This is the same calculation. You understand? Okay? This is the same calculation. And some people, when they're putting money into a project, they just want to see what their cash flow is going to be. Does that make sense? So this is just a formula to calculate cash flow. Okay? Another piece of math. So I'm going to go through this sort of fast because I'm getting a little bit behind. We were a little bit slow on you guys calculating, so I got to get through the math, okay? All right, cash on cash return. Cash on cash return. Okay. So cash on cash return is another calculation. Example, in residential, cash on cash return is that if you have, so remember you bought that property for $300,000, right? And you put $60,000 down, and your payment, PITI, is $1,200, and you have $150 in like utilities and stuff that's non-PITI, and you have $350 in cash flow, right? Cash on cash return is simply, if you get $350 in cash flow and you times that by 12, you get roughly around $4,500 a year. When you put $60,000 down and you end up getting like $4,000 or $5,000, then that's your cash on cash return. You're roughly around 7-8%. You guys understand what I just said? Okay, that's your cash on cash return. That means that the amount of cash that you had to put into a project gave you a 7 or 8 or 9% return on your money. And that's awesome. Because the same cash that you would put in the bank would get you a 1, 2, 3% return. The same cash that you put into a stock might get you 4 or 5%, or a mutual fund. Or you might lose it in a bad market. Is the same cash that you put into a project. So cash on cash return is a formula that you would do for an investor that is buying with financing. You guys understand that? Because you're not buying cash, you're buying with loan. So when you break it down that way, it's like, hey, you know what the great news is? Is yeah, this property is offering a 5 cap, but the cash on cash return, if you were to put this much down, is pretty good. Does that make sense?
So Robert, do you only use the down payment, or do you use other expenses? Say if he has
You would use
inspections and things like
you
that.
would use everything on a cash on cash return. Okay? I mean, in this case, down payment, but really, if you wanted it more accurate, then you'd use everything. Well, everything you have to pay out of your pocket. Okay?
We need to look at future value of the property.
Yeah, that's the appreciation. That's a separate type of reason why you buy a property. Like why do you buy a property at a low cap rate? Because I'm buying it for potential appreciation. Does that make sense? Okay? Because see, here's the thing. The money that you put in the bank will never appreciate. It will actually just go down. You know that the annual consumer price index of inflation is on average over 3%. That means that when you keep your money somewhere that's not getting more than 3%, your money actually is worth less every year. You guys know that, right?
It's 2.65.
Something like that. like around 3%, you know. All right? You guys understand that? So if your money is just sitting in bank and you're earning from your money market account 1-2%, then it's gonna be worth 1%, 1-2% less every single year. I'm not saying don't hoard cash. I'm just saying put cash in better places. You know what I'm saying? If you're older, at least an annuity will give you 4 or 5% guarantees. You know what I'm saying? Okay? At least you don't lose the value based on inflation. But if you're literally sitting, your money is sitting somewhere that doesn't appreciate and it doesn't return you more than 3%, then your money's gonna be worth less. This is how it is. I mean, can you see a movie for $3 anymore? Movies now are way above 10. You right? You know, last time you went to McDonald's, did they have the 2 for $2 Big Macs anymore? No, a Big Mac, one burger costs $5. Meal costs close to 10 now. You know what I'm saying? Right? You know, go to Five Guys. The burger itself is $10. They used to make fun of burgers by calling them $6 burger. Now, really, every burger is a $6 burger these days. You know what I'm saying? Don't make fun of $6 burgers anymore. You go to Habit, it's a $6 burger, at least. And if you want mushrooms, an extra $1.50. Okay? All right, you guys get that? Everything is costing more. So, money in bank is worth less every year unless you're getting a big return. Okay? So, this is a calculation of cash on cash return. If you bought a property for $1 million and you finance $750 and your down payment is $250, and if your estimated return after payments and everything is $25,000 a year, then the $250 that you used for down payment is gaining back 10% cash on cash return. Does that make sense? Okay. What's that? Yeah, but you're really not looking that. You know, it's just that in 10 years, hopefully the property doesn't go down in value. If it's still the same, then in 10 years you get the money back, 10% each year, plus it's still there. Better than leaving it in the bank. In 10 years, your money's still there. You know? Okay? Decided the cash flow is enough. Other advantages of owning a property. The other advantages of owning a property is the fact that the property may appreciate one day. See, when you talk to your client about owning a property, you're not talking only about the cash on cash return. You're not talking about just the net operating income, the value of the property, but what you're also talking about is the appreciation. There's lots of ways for properties to appreciate. Okay? There's lots of ways for a property to appreciate. Let me give you how. Look at this. Properties can appreciate when you have a better tenant. Properties can appreciate, okay, when the market that you're in becomes more popular and changes and revitalizes. Okay? The property depreciates if the property gets older, but the property may appreciate if you update it. Okay? The property can appreciate with better tenants. Okay? Or it appreciates because more population. Does that make sense? So there's lots of ways for properties to appreciate. Okay? But you already helped them create a cash on cash return. Right? You already have so see, now you're understanding complex investments. You have a great cash on cash return. Okay? Your cash on cash return is 10, 12, 13%. You keep the same cash and you put it in the bank, your cash on cash return is 1-2%. Put it into stock, 4 or 5%. Okay? All right? So that's how, and then of course, you have the tax benefits. Your write-offs. Some people buy investment properties so they have tax benefits. Yeah, it was on there earlier. If you want to take the picture. Yeah. Cash flow before debt, depreciation, amortization, and taxes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let's take a picture of it. All right. Okay, so let's move on. See, so you're learning a lot of. All right. I don't think we have time to go through this too much. Is how to evaluate land. Okay, so I'm just going to read through this real fast. We only have 11 minutes here for class. Land is not as black and white when evaluating land as it is income property. Okay, the reason why is land. There's no income. You know, getting financing on land is not easy. If you ever run into a situation where someone says, "Yeah, I want to buy this piece of land and I want to put 50% down," yeah, that's possible. But if you want to look for 10, 20% down, 30% down on land, you know, normally that's really hard. You know, a lot of times when you're doing land deals, you know, you're looking for like some type of seller carry, okay? Because financing from the bank is just not easy to find, okay? But just real quick, valuing land, you just have to gather all relevant data. You know, take photos, create a profile sheet of the actual land, take photos of surrounding area, gather reports, surveys that the owner has, walk the site, okay? Find out history, find comps, find like pieces of land for sale, make sure your comps are good, test the market, okay? And then do an income approach on what you think. What's that?
Zoning.
Yeah, there's a lot of homework when it comes to land. You know, zoning, talk to the city. There's all talk. Williamson Act is you can't develop it on there for a long time. But you see that a lot over there, the grape, you know, in the agricultural, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, so I mean, that's different ways to evaluate land, okay? Okay, so commercial finance is next week. That's one of our last topics, okay? One of our last topics. All right, so I'm gonna go through due diligence just real quick. Okay, just real quick, we have only 10 minutes. Okay. Oh, okay. Hey, is that the sign-in sheet? Oh, okay, yeah, the sign-in sheet's back there. We'll just circulate it around, okay? All right. Okay, so I don't have an hour to go over due diligence with you. Okay, so probably next week I'll just give you a whole sheet for due diligence. But normally we happen to be an industry, okay, where this is a caveat emptor industry for commercial. In that word is an old word that means let the buyer beware. Caveat emptor, okay? Let the buyer beware. So consumer, I'll just read this straight for the laws here, but consumer protection laws to home purchases and other consumer transactions don't really apply to commercial transactions. So in commercial transactions, the rule is that the buyer must examine, judge, and test for themselves. Okay, all and anything that has to do with the property. Okay, you know, in consumer laws, you know, there's disclosures. You know, someone asked me the question. They said that, you know, they said the property is a probate sale, so they're exempt from providing certain types of disclosures, and the buyer doesn't want to pay for a natural hazard disclosure. And so the question is, do we still need to provide one? The answer is yeah. Technically, a seller is supposed to provide a natural hazard disclosure. If the seller says that they're exempt from it, I would still hold the seller accountable to provide it. And if they don't, then I would talk to the agent, and agents provide it. Listing agents should provide it then. You know, if the listing agent's receiving a commission. But the thing is that, you know, those are consumer laws and you can't break them. You know, the buyer's supposed to have a natural hazard disclosure. Even if the buyer shouldn't have to pay for it. You know, the seller's supposed to provide it. The seller will provide, agents provide it. But the buyer's supposed to get one, okay? So these are things that, you know, that our consumers are protected for on residential property. But on commercial, it's not the same. Okay, so in commercial, you have a big due diligence period, okay, to determine the feasibility of a project. And it's a big deal. You know, I think that's where the commercial agent, that's where, you know, that's why the agents make big bucks, is to help them get through that feasibility period. Make sure the deal is worth it for them to buy, okay? Try to see, you know, any problems with the situation, okay, before it happens, okay? All right, so let's see what time it is. It's 12:55, I think we're good, okay? I think we're good on that. So, all right, so I will see you next week. So next week we're gonna go through commercial financing, okay? A lot of stuff next week, so don't miss out next week, all right? All right, I'll see y'all later.
Next week.